Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
I'm Faye.
And I'm James. So, Faye, we're back for 2025 and also back is your voice. At the tail end of last year, you had no voice.
I know, and that kind of carried on, to be honest, throughout Christmas. But thank you very much for holding the fort on the Deloitte episode. For listeners, I was actually there, but I literally had no voice. So I was as much use as a chocolate teapot. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you back and firing on all cylinders. What's your first week back look like?
Well, I think we're definitely back running. It went nice and quiet for a few weeks over the Christmas break. But yeah, things are definitely going quickly again now. Cofinitive's in its new home with Cambridge Management Consulting. So we're all very excited about that. And it is so busy. It's kind of crazy. We closed 21 to Watch last week as well. So we're completely, pedal to the metal on that one as well. Got out with the first networking event of 2025 as well. So straight back out there, and we had a really nice breakfast over at the Glass House, the Innovate Cambridge venue. So that was nice. And then this week we've got an event with Raoul, who we spoke to at the start of December, talking about how company adoption of AI, which is absolutely brilliant. And that event came about as a result of him coming on the podcast. So yeah, everything's going as expected, as busy as ever. And what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like a really nice break, actually. I think everyone in my network seemed to down tools. So, obviously, as you do, you're keeping an eye on email over the break, and it was really, really quiet. So it was lovely. Just before Christmas, we ticked off a bucket list item. We saw Paul McCartney at the O2. In fact, I've seen 50% of the Beatles now because Ringo Starr turned up as a surprise guest for the encores. So pleased with that.
But you do realise that you're not going to ever do 100% of the Beatles.
I know. Well, yeah, too soon. There was a lot of video. It was quite emotional, actually. Like, they did a really nice job of playing video when they were doing Beatles songs of the band and stuff like that. So yeah, it's quite emotional. But anyway, yeah, first week back, productive, lots of strategy conversations. We've even had our first planning session for Cambridge Tech Week 2025. So that just shows you this is like an all-round year thing now, right?
And so it should be as well. There's an awful lot, just from this podcast alone, there's so much going on. So, and actually on Cambridge Tech Week, there is so much happening behind the scenes. So I really think that, year 3 is just going to be phenomenal. So I'm sure we'll be doing lots of updates on the podcast too.
Absolutely. Cool. So we thought we'd give a little bit of an extended news segment just to pick up any stories that broke over the holiday period. Why don't we start with you, Faye? You've got some news to share, haven't you? You were announced as the new chair of Cambridge Chambers of Commerce. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, I was. Why on earth we thought it was a good idea to announce on the first day that everyone was back, but it was phenomenal. I have to say the feedback has been really great. And I think most people will know I've sat on that board for the last 4.5 years. And like we do with the podcast, we're very we take the ecosystem very seriously. And for me, the chamber is that expansion of that B2B supply chain for the region. So when I was asked, would I step in when the legend that's Brian Jones was stepping down, then I thought it was my responsibility to do it. So yes, I now have a new extended role, but let me tell you, that is my slate well and truly full. There is nothing else being added onto my list of things this year.
That also reminds me, last year your word for the year was easy. So what is it for 2025?
Well, considering I completely mucked up easy last year and made things so massively transformational and complex, I'm going to go for easy this year. Shall I try it again?
Okay.
Oh dear.
Right. A second chance for easy then. Okay.
Yeah. So let's go through some of the other news then. There's an awful lot to get us started in the startup community, covering loads of tech. So why don't you get going with the first one?
Yeah, so in no particular order, our first one is Fin Crime Dynamics have secured seed capital to step up its fight against financial crime. And that seed round was led by Oxford Capital alongside Twin Path Ventures and Syndicate Room. So congrats to them.
Software platform Kennard, developed by startup Cambridge Kinetics, have successfully entered the US market, and the move marks a significant milestone in the growth journey for Kennard, which looks like it's got a really strong future. And so congrats to Jason, who we spoke to in episode 103 last year.
Yeah, that's right. So congrats, Jason. Magicon, a Cambridge-based social enterprise specialist in sustainable water technology, has just received significant new financial support from Cambridge Enterprise Ventures, Innovate UK and the Royal Academy of Engineering to underpin its global expansion. The investment is set to accelerate Magicon's mission of providing affordable, clean water to communities across East Africa through its innovative solar-powered water kiosks and partnership model, which expands its reach and impact in several crucial ways. So Magicon have said that they'll use this new investment to extend its product pilots beyond Tanzania and into neighbouring Kenya. So congratulations to Mike Koto, who's a long-standing supporter of the Trinity Bradfield Prize and the Bradfield, and the rest of the team there.
One of Cambridge's most promising biotech startups and listed on this year's 21 to Watch is a company called Outsea Limited, led by Julian Goff. And they have announced that they're collaborating with an organisation in Finland, the Finnish Biobank Cooperative, to advance biomedical research in dementia. Outsea develop and apply innovative computational approaches to genomics for drug target discovery and precision medicine.
Cambridge cleantech company Hooten Bio, who are working on decarbonising heavy transport, have appointed Dr. Peter Collins as their chair as they continue towards Series A funding round. To learn more about Hooten Bio, you can listen to our conversation with CEO Paul Beastall, which was back in episode 81.
So that's some updates from the startup community. And some of you may have been watching the Consumer Electronics Show, CES, in Las Vegas last week, where it was great to watch a whole glut of companies over from Cambridge. So a few of them included 42T, who launched an innovative video-capable medical device designed to improve the speed and safety of patient intubation during surgery and emergency care. Electron RX, who we're speaking to in a couple of weeks' time, actually, they were there showcasing their product, Purple DX. And also showcasing the diversity of CES was Second Mind's CEO Gary Brotman and Chief Product Officer Morgan Jenkins. They were there to discuss all the latest advancements in vehicle technology and advanced mobility, and plus many, many more. So it was really great to see a good Cambridge contingent out there in force.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, we've announced the finalists for the Trinity Bradfield Prize. So there's a few tickets left. That's on the 23rd of January at the Bradfield Centre. So go to trinitybradfieldprize.co.uk to register. Finalists are Protonera, who are turning mixed contaminated plastics into low-carbon hydrogen. Demetria, who are transforming the time it takes to get an endometriosis diagnostics from 9 years to 9 minutes. Remedium Energy, who are revolutionising carbon capture by developing point source carbon capture technologies and grid scale electricity storage. Pine Peak, who are developing cutting edge physics driven technology to predict wildfire risk and behaviour across any terrain anywhere in the world. Power Matrix, who provide the most efficient and compact next-generation high-performance power supplies for emerging markets such as data centres, drones, e-mobility, aerospace and industrial applications. And last but not least, HealthSpan Biotics, who are developing safe, affordable, effective probiotic bacteria that enhance the brain's resilience to Alzheimer's disease. So it's going to be a great evening. Come along, watch the pitches, learn from those pitches, find out who wins, and of course you get to meet and rub shoulders with the great and the good of the Cambridge tech scene.
I thought you were going to say you get to meet us too, because we'll both be there.
I don't think my ego's out it's not that out of control just yet.
No. It's way too early in the year. Sorry. What a great list of finalists. A few of those, obviously, we already know. Demetria have just been featured alongside another couple of Cambridge companies in the Engineer. So, they're definitely a really interesting one to watch. So I've got my ticket booked. I'll definitely be there. And then I think lastly, James, you also caught up with Stuart about UK Tech Week.
So, Stuart, thanks for coming back onto the show and Happy New Year. We spoke back on episode 85 when you talked to us about UK Tech Week in 2024. So why don't we just take a couple of minutes to reflect back on how that went for you last year? Any highlights you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, obviously last year was our first ever UK Tech Week, and we're really pleased with how it went. And we ended it with 37 events across 22 different towns and cities across the UK. You know, we partnered with lots of regional tech weeks, digital festivals, such as Birmingham Tech Week, Glasgow Tech Week, the brand new Belfast Tech Week, which started last year, plus areas such as Digital Lincolnshire and Innovate Lancashire. So across the whole of the UK, which was great. And plus also we partnered with some national advocacy organisations such as Tech UK and the Startup Coalition. And those 22 different towns and cities, there were some of the bigger and more established festivals such as Cambridge and Birmingham, and sort of new areas such as Basildon Creative Tech Festival. So it was just great to get away from not just the bigger tech sectors that you might think of, like Leeds and Sheffield, Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol, but also reaching out into other areas of the country as well. So we were really pleased with our first ever UK Tech Week.
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting, isn't it? Just to kind of hear about some of those names that you just reeled off there. As you say, they're not cities or towns that you would commonly associate with tech, but it just shows the diversity, the kind of the reach, the vibrancy of tech across the whole country, which is just great news.
No, it is. I mean, one of our new partners for this year is Tech Cornwall. And I think sometimes, you know, the media, and I think many of us just focus on those 4 or 5 bigger cities and think that's where tech is. But the stuff that's going on down in Cornwall and the entire Southwest, and we've got Tech Southwest on board, it's just incredible. And, you know, Tech Cornwall run Agile on the Beach, which is sort of probably one of the biggest and best tech festivals in the UK. And as an example, they had 50 speaker slots and they had 500 people applying to speak at it. So it's just great to get them on board. And hopefully we can make sure that, you know, when people talk about what's going on in London, we can talk about what's going on in Cornwall as well, and what's going on in Sunderland and up in Lancaster as well. So I think it's really important to have that national conversation where we bring all voices to the table.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it sounds like you built some really solid foundations for the first UK Tech Week last year. So looking into this year, we're now in 2025. What's in store? It sounds really exciting.
Well, we've got lots of events already confirmed, which I won't say yes because we'll be announcing them in probably about 5 or 6 weeks. Lots of good conversations going on with our existing partners from last year. Plus, we've brought some more partners. I mentioned Tech Cornwall, Tech Southwest, Tech Exeter. You know, there's lots going on in that region. But we've also got UK AI, which is the new industry body for the AI sector. We have UK Black Tech, who are going to put up a couple of events on. So some really exciting stuff that's planned for this year. As for numbers, you know, we've gone from sort of 20 partners to 27. I think that'll probably go up to about 35 before we hit the week. We had 37 events last year, 60, 70, 80, I'm not quite sure yet. But, you know, and I'm not that focused on the numbers. I think what we're more focused on is making sure that we're spreading that conversation to every corner of the UK. So every town and city feels that they're playing a part.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, as you know, we're keen to support in any way we can, and we'd love to track the progress. You mentioned your announcements that will be coming up, you know, in a few weeks' time. So we'll definitely keep an eye on those. And you know, we hope to speak to you again on the show and maybe get some of those voices you talked about onto the show as well, just to share their stories.
Absolutely. I mean, I look forward to coming back myself. But yes, there are so many great stories, and I'd love to introduce you and introduce all your listeners and viewers to those stories as well.
Well, fantastic. Thanks for taking the time, Stuart, and what a great way to start the year.
Pleasure, James. Thank you.
Brilliant. So that leads us on to this week's episode. Today we're talking to Suzanna Ward, Head of Data and Community at the Cambridge Crystallographic Data Centre, which for now on we're going to shorten to CCDC. CCDC approached us and we were interested to find out more about what they actually did. So we thought you would be interested too.
Suzanna, welcome to Cambridge Tech Podcast. Why don't we start by getting to know you a little bit more? So could you tell us your background and how you arrived at CCDC?
Thanks, and thanks for inviting me. So I started at Southampton University. I did a MChem degree, and I did a project with Professor Mike Hursthouse. He was an eminent crystallographer, and he also ran the National Crystallography Service in Southampton. So they were providing a service to do crystallography for other academics in the UK. While working with Mike, I also started using the database that the Cambridge Crystallographic Data Centre provides. And then I saw an opportunity to apply for a job at CCDC as a scientific editor. So I applied for that job in 2006. I got the job and then worked for a number of years as a scientific editor, so helping get the data and the database that we provide out to our users. And then I went on to manage the team that curates the database, and now I've taken on extra responsibility to help train, educate others on using the CSD. And that's been really impactful because it means that I get to meet the community and see the impact of what we do at CCDC.
I think that's really exciting because you started as a user, so you've seen it all different ways as well, which is brilliant. But for myself and for our listeners, we're heading into complete unknown territory here with what you do at CCDC. So we're definitely going to unpick those highlights that you've just mentioned. But as I understand it, you're a world-leading provider of structural chemistry data for life science and materials science research and application, which is all very good. But actually, can we go one step further back than that? And can you actually explain what crystallography is?
Yes, so in the field of crystallography, people use a technique where they use a diffractometer, and a diffractometer shines X-ray beam at a crystal, and that enables the researcher to determine what's inside that crystal. So you can then start to build up a picture of the chemistry inside. So you'll see a molecule, and you'll see how that molecule packs together within the crystal. So that can be used to help increase our knowledge about chemistry, and it can also be used in industry. So pharmaceutical industry use it a lot to help them develop new drugs as well.
Okay, thank you for that. That's perfect. And I did Google as well before, and I really like the impact of the crystals as well, and the light shining through. So for me, from a creative graphical point of view, I thought it was really quite a lovely thing as well. So what do you actually do? You gave us a couple of little flavours within your journey, but what do you actually do at CCDC?
So we are a non-profit organisation, so we're a charity. We have about 100 staff, and as a charity we have a mission. So our mission is to advance chemistry and crystallography for the public benefit. And one of the primary ways we do that is by providing the Cambridge Structural Database. So we collect together people's data sets. So when they use their machines in their organisation or institution, they provide us with the data. And we collect that together and curate the data sets into a database. So it's really a resource provided by the community for the community, and it's used by researchers and educators across the globe. Alongside the data, we provide a software portfolio to enable researchers to gain new insights from the data. And I think we also provide quite a central role in advancing crystallographic research. So we help to contribute to the development of computational chemistry, materials science, and a lot of what we do and a lot of our endeavours are working collaboratively with academics or industry users as well to help foster innovation, both for the platform that we provide, the database, and the field that we work in. Alongside the database, the science, and the software, we also do quite a bit of work on training our users, helping in the educational space, and hopefully trying to help inspire a new generation of structural scientists so they'll become the leaders of the future in our field. I think today around 1,200 universities use the database and over 100 industrial companies as well.
Just a question here. Is it like EBI for the genomics? So you're kind of an equivalent of that in your field?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, That's perfect. And you've talked about all the different kinds of scientists that use it. And you mentioned pharmaceuticals and things like that. What other sectors would be using the information that you provide?
So the academic sector, the pharmaceutical sector, agrochemical, pure chemical science, functional materials sector. I think it can be quite broad. I think the sector that uses it the most in industry is definitely the pharmaceutical sector. But we have lots of other applications that the database can be used for.
Yeah, that's a really helpful background. Thank you. So going right back to the beginning, I believe CCDC has a really inspirational origin story. We like to speak to a lot of female founders on the podcast. So can you tell us a little bit about that history and the vision of Dr. Olga Kennard?
Yes, of course. Back in, I think, the 1940s or 1950s, Olga Kennard and J.D. Bernal had a passionate belief that the collective use of data could lead to new knowledge and new insights. And back in 1965, Olga Kennard established what's now the Cambridge Crystallographic Data Centre, and it grew out of the Cambridge University. So she was working in the chemistry department at the Cambridge University. In a lecture she gave in 1995, she said that data banks like the CSD should serve three main functions, and that's what she was working towards. So the three functions were collecting together that data and making it accessible to scientists worldwide. The second one was transforming the data into knowledge banks so you could start to get new learnings from the data. And the third was to generate those insights. So when it was established, it was obviously pre-internet, pre-email, so it was quite a different world. So when they started, they were looking through publications and they were then extracting the data from the publications. And I think when Olga describes it, she describes having to use punch cards and knitting needles. So I don't quite know what that looked like. And it was either with people working from home, or I think there was a loft in the chemistry department that they were doing it in. And when they first started doing the database, it wasn't a database as we know it today. It was a book. So it took 5 years to create the first book with all of the data sets that had been published up until then. And it was more like a kind of dictionary, so you could have basic ways of searching. I think by about volume 13, they started introducing computer-aided chemical diagrams, so that greatly kind of improved the way that researchers could use it. And as then technology started to advance, they were able to, I think by the end of the 1980s, create the first database to store the information and have a search functionality for some of our users. So while that was going on, Olga also changed the way that we collected the data. So rather than typing from a scientific publication, scientists started to send us the data. Obviously, to start with, that was through the post, and we'd get lots of printed papers, but then it changed to via email. So we'd get the data pre-publication, and then we could add it to the database. And as that was going on, our software was also improving. So she instigated that generation of knowledge banks from the data. So that was the second main function she saw as a data repository like CCDC. So the first knowledge base they created at CCDC was enabling you to look at molecular geometry. So she collected together, or the organization collected together, all of the bonds and angles within a molecule. So you could start to learn about fundamental chemistry from the data derived from the CSD. And I think then in about 1987, we changed from a funded organisation, so we were funded through government funding, and we changed to a registered charity. And that was because we were starting to see interest from the pharmaceutical industry. So we had developed our software enough that they saw the value of what we were doing, and they started to pay for that advanced functionality to use in their workflows.
I just love the mental image of knitting needles and punch cards and publishing books. I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's got that great imagery that conjures up.
you are a startup looking to grow in Cambridge, the Bradfield Centre offers a range of flexible membership packages which put you in control of your office and home working mix. There's a vibrant, collaborative atmosphere, on-site cafe, plenty of green outside space, and regular member social events. We also offer a range of high-quality meeting spaces for hire, and for tech event organisers, our auditorium, lakeside pavilion, and atrium spaces are perfect to bring your communities together for in-person and hybrid events. For more information, visit bradfieldcentre.com or call 01223 919 600.
That must have been some kind of digitization and transformation project to early adopters of the internet by the sounds of things, and software. And so how does the charity work? How do you do the fundraising? Who are your donors? Who supports?
We're self-funded. Our industrial users pay to use our software and services, and so do the academics. We try and set the academic price lower because they're also contributing the data, and we want to our mission is to advance chemistry and crystallography for the public benefit. So we try and keep the costs as low as possible. We are governed by our trustees, who are made up from our community as well. So our trustees are people from our academic industrial community, and they help govern our future direction. And I think I've only met Olga once in person, but from everything I've heard about her, I think she was an incredible lady, and she was such a pioneer. She had such a kind of strength of vision, and she really helped kind of accelerate the growth of the field, I think.
Yeah, vision, and she moved with the times. You go through all of those different stages and know that there's got to be a better way of doing things. Are there other organisations like CCDC, or are you very unique in what you do?
Yeah, there are other organisations like CCDC. So we are privileged in the field of crystallography that it is normal to share data, and that started quite early on in the field. And we also have a standard file format for data sharing. So we have what's called a crystallographic information file, and that was widely adopted by all of the publishers, all of the data repositories like us, all of the software vendors as well, and the researchers. So that means that all structural data is now curated into the appropriate database, but there are different structural databases that exist. So we are a structural database for organic and metal organic crystal structures. So essentially, if it's got a carbon in it and it's not a huge protein molecule. But the other organisations that exist in our field are people like the Protein Data Bank. So in Hinxton at the EBI, there's the PDB, and they take care of the macromolecule structures. There's also in Germany, Karlsruhe, who curate data that's inorganic. So where it doesn't have a carbon, there's an inorganic crystal structure database. And we have a partnership with that organisation. So we have a joint deposition service for that data and a joint access service for both the CSD and the ICSD. And there's also the ICDD, the International Centre of Diffraction Data for powder patterns, and that's based in the US. So there are other similar organisations. They're all funded slightly differently to us, but we have partnerships with all of the ones I've just mentioned. I think in the field of chemistry and in wider science discipline, then the amount of data sharing varies. I think it's really important to try and establish that early on, try and establish the right standards for data sharing, and try and grow that adoption. I think in some of the other fields it's not quite as easy, or it's a bit disparate with lots of different ways to find data.
That's very interesting. Thank you. I mean, I think the science sector is very collegiate. It is, whether it's for regulation or academia, you can achieve so much more by combining that. And it just made me think then, do you have to reach out to the scientists to say, send us your information, or is it are they quite proactive at contacting you?
Because it's so ingrained in crystallography, they're really proactive. We also have partnerships with all of the major publishers publishing the data as well. So it's a requirement for most journals publishing structural data. That data is deposited pre-publication with the appropriate repository. So we have that in place. We also have an online deposition system. So it's interactive. So it tries to support the people generating the data sets as well. So it can check the validity of the data, it can check the uniqueness of the data, the depositor can ensure they follow those community standards and community expectations, and they can also see highlights from their data set. They can check it's correct. They can enhance their data set as they go through the deposition process. So we're really trying to support them in sharing their data, but because they're also users of the database, they really see the value. So they're using the database and other people's structures when they do their own research, and it's guiding kind of how they do their research and then what structures come to us. So normally most of the structures are associated with an associated scientific article, and the data set is deposited pre-publication, and then we make that available to users at the point of publication. But we are seeing an increase in researchers just publishing directly through the database as well. So not all their data sets are relevant for a scientific article, or they might not want to write a scientific article, but they have the option of publishing with us directly as a data set. And I think about 10% of our new structures coming into the CSD are now published purely through that route as well. So not only are they kind of trained and engaged in depositing data, but they're trying to publish more as well.
So we've spoken a lot there about the database. We are the Cambridge Tech Podcast, so maybe we could just spend a couple of minutes talking about the tech side of things. One of my famous two-part questions, which Faye loves. The first part is, just how many software engineers, data scientists do you have, in CCDC, and what does that technology side of the charity look like? And then secondly, what's the implications of AI on CCDC? It sounds like you've been at the forefront of a number of different technology waves. So, how are you embracing AI? Are you allowing AI to train on your data? It'd be interesting to understand that.
So in terms of people here, we've got about 100 people at the organisation. I think the data team is around 15 people, helping to scientifically curate the data, making sure it's in the right data standards. In terms of the software development team, I would say that's around 30 software developers at CCDC. So they're responsible for creating and producing the software that our users see, but also the infrastructure that we use to curate the CSD and manage the data as well. In terms of the software, we have some free software and services. So we have some free visualization tools for users that our software development team have created. We have online deposition and access. Then for more advanced users, we have some core functionality, and we provide that through software, through the web, and through an API, so programmatic access. And that's looking to help researchers visualize, analyze data within the CSD and their own data sets. And one of our key bits of software is a platform called Mercury. So that's looking to visualize the crystal structures. And I think that visualization, I think it was mentioned at the start, is really powerful to actually see firsthand what things look like and to start to see how molecules interact together, I think is one of our most powerful tools. I think the other part that's most widely adopted from our users is the searching tools. So we have Conquest platform for desktop searching. We have both free and advanced online searching services, and we have our CSD Python API. So researchers can search programmatically, and it's also, they can do bulk searching of the database. So that's kind of basic and kind of core users. And then we've got some software suites aimed at particular areas. So we have CSD materials. That's used predominantly by academia, the pharmaceutical industry and the agrochemical industry. and it supports the assessment of solid form stability. And at the heart of everything is the CSD. So what can we learn from the CSD in this context? So it helps researchers design novel materials, it helps them determine if different solid forms exist, and gives a better understanding of pure solid state chemistry. Then we have CSD particle, which is also used within the pharmaceutical industry, but further downstream, so to anticipate particle properties and the behaviour of a solid form during that manufacturing part of the process. And then we have CSD discovery, which again is used in the pharmaceutical industry, but it includes a molecular docking platform, and you can search across different databases in the context of drug discovery. You asked about AI as well. So we are seeing an increasing demand for people using AI on the database. I think what we've learnt is that having high quality data is really important for AI. Understanding your data is really important. The CSD is often referred to by others as a gold standard resource, so it's not surprising that people are wanting to use AI on the resource. I think it does provide new research and innovation opportunities, and I think that's both for us and our users. So it can be used now for purposes that we'd never imagined when the CSD was first created. And we actually use AI to help us build the CSD as well. So we have got those rigorous checks to check the quality of the data. We still have a team here, but we have automated part of the process using the knowledge contained in the CSD. I think one of the challenges that AI brings is making sure that we can continue to balance the accessibility of the data, and going back to that mission of trying to advance chemistry and crystallography for the public benefit, but also sustainability. So making sure anything that we do doesn't impact our future funding model. We normally try and work with users of the database. We try and collaborate if we can. So, for example, we've done some collaborations where a pharmaceutical company has used the CSD to help them predict solubility, and we work with academics. So one of the projects that we've worked with academics on is using AI and the CSD to predict the crystallizability of a substance as well. And I think when we're doing these collaborations, we then also have the option of thinking about whether we productize these models and make those models more accessible, either through our API or more accessible through our products and software.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So, Suzanna, my last question for you, you know, your role is head of data, which obviously we've just talked a little bit about, but also it's head of community as well. So you've talked about research, innovation, building these replicable models, obviously the positive impacts of things like time to market of new drugs, you know, reducing cost of development, those kinds of things. But I was interested to know a little bit more about the social impact side of things. So, for example, I believe you sponsor PhD students, you look at professional development, and obviously you're constantly working with the stakeholders. Do you want to just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, of course. So, like you've mentioned, we do sponsor PhD students. So we've helped support over 50, I think, PhD studentships. We've been involved since around 2000. We also try and make sure that everyone that wants to use the CSD is able to use the CSD. So we've got a program named after our past executive director, Frank Allen, and it's called a FAIR program, where it makes the software and the data available to scientists and academics in underrepresented countries. So we don't charge for it in those countries. And I think we've got over 50 universities using the CSD of that nature. So some people in Africa or South America using the CSD, and we track how many publications they're able to do because of it. We also provide outreach grants, so to help and support others in communicating STEM and about crystallography, so growing the impact both for scientists but also for the public. So every year I think we support 5 or 6 as outreach grants for people in the community. That's involved some of the winners generating things like a comic book for schools, or going out to schools in Ghana trying to demonstrate the power of crystallography through crystal growing competitions. There was something in Uruguay going out to young offenders institutions and trying to educate them in science, so when they leave that institution they can go out and do something worthwhile in the community. As well as that, we provide early career support. So I think this year we've supported over 20 different events financially by providing early career support. So that's early career prizes for researchers giving posters or presentations, or helping them get to conferences or meetings worldwide. And we go out and train at those crystallography schools or chemistry schools as well.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating. So thanks for taking the time, Suzanne. It really does, I think, as Faye said, it feels like you've been hidden in plain sight. I've never come across CCDC before, but it's amazing to hear the impact and the influence that your work has.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think we are always really keen to engage with more people in the Cambridge area. I think we feel so privileged to be in this part of the world. It's so strong for science and technology, and we've had some really good collaborations within Cambridge already, but we're always looking for opportunities to collaborate with more people, see what more we can do to push the boundaries of innovation with the local community as well as globally.
Fantastic. And where do people find you? Is there a website they can go to?
Yes, of course, we do have a website, and we'd love people to come and take a look. It is www.ccdc.cam.ac.uk.
Perfect. Well, thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It'll really help others discover the show.